council reconvene as an open meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lawrence, second by Mr. Guines.
Try and talk
All
them through their
in favor?
documents.
And I guess let the record show there was no action taken. No action taken in executive session.
That seems to be on.
6-1. All right, we'll begin with mayor's report.
I just have to speak loud. What we have today, I think you have a number of documents in front of you that I think council had asked about what, information about current debt and outlook. And one piece of paper that kind of shows you the commitment to the GO bonds and what we have as far as millage. Again, today, the question is, can we use the amount we could use to go forward with the existing debt load and the service of that debt already built in 2019 budget. And I think a few of you have responded with a number of things you'd like to see. But the question is, we have the opportunity to get some money and do some projects. And whether the amount is 12 or 14 or 10 or whatever, I think is the intent of this workshop, to interact with one another and figure out, hey, what's the figure? We know what the Fed does, and we know that the longer we wait on projects, it costs more money. So the effectiveness of the money, whenever you spend it, it's kind of, timing is a big part of it. So we would ask today to make yourself comfortable on if we can do this, what we can do, as far as the total amount, not so much the projects. The projects will be approved one by one, and we would address that, Mike, I think in another workshop very specifically. Just can we, is it wise to borrow $14 million? We've got some financial experts that are familiar with our exact position and what is prudent to do. And we feel that the numbers at this point in time, 14 million, that we can gracefully move forward with. So that's the question now. Should we entertain, from a timing standpoint, move on the sale of the bond? And what we spend it for, again, will be visited, and y'all will make the call on specifically the projects.
Okay.
And that concludes my report, unless you want to say something, Mike.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor. We'll begin with council reports. Mr. Lawrence.
The main reason for this workshop is discussed to see what we actually need to borrow the money for. And that's the reason we all agreed to do this. 14 million, we borrowed 5 million, that's up to this council. But we always said during the budget hearing that we'd borrow money strictly for paving and infrastructure work throughout the city. That was what we said at the budget hearing. Yes, we did set the millage to leave it there in case we needed to do that. But it's up to this council to decide if they want to borrow 4 million, 5 million, or whatever. That's up to them. That's why we're having this workshop. I have other things to say, but we'll get into the workshop itself and get the feedback from each one of the council individually. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Guines.
Yeah, and I like the idea of being aggressive to investing back into the city. I wanted to look at some of the things that are in the community, especially the community I represent. Just wanted to ensure that after all what we've been through, that there is a bone that we can receive somewhat in the community. We do need to invest in that community. We've been through a lot, and there's a lot of things that we need to do to reignite and get our community back up and rolling. So I like some of those things to be considered as we go on in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guines. Ms. Newman. Mr. Deming.
I just want to request a couple things, one from the council and one from the administration. First off, I know we discussed the bond and the purpose of these bonds, and I would request that the council enter into some form of pledge to maintain the purpose of these bonds. And second, whatever resolution we put together, if the administration would provide us an accounting of what's gone in and come out of this bond through this process, so we can all actively keep an eye on where this money is spent. And I'm not accusing you or the council or any of the previous administrations of the council of doing anything wrong, but sometimes we bond things with certain intents, and then we start paying for other things with good intentions, but we fail to maintain the purpose of that bond. And so that would be my request, is that this council enter into an agreement amongst itself to not allow any spending of this bond for any purposes outside of this bond, and that the mayor would provide us with an accounting, or the administration would, as per every meeting, to maintain this balance sheet. Right, and we have project numbers, and so we can account for balance sheets versus project. Right, and that's why we're here today, is to spell out what that 14 million, what the
Yep.
intent of that $14 million is.
Councilman, you've got some, in the documents in front of you, item E is the consent, is the document from the 2014 bond that we mistakenly call a paving bond. That's the document, a page out of the bond that explains what we're going to spend that money on. So I would submit to you that we have not done anything that's not on that list.
And that's why I said I wasn't alleging that things hadn't been done, but the agreement that was made amongst the council and the administration at the time of that previous bond was taken out, wasn't adhered to as strictly as I think one would have liked it. Nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Tisdale?
Yes, I'd like to read a letter from Carol Campbell on behalf of the city's tree committee. She's one of the co-chairs, she and Bernie Marinovich. And I told her that I would read this during my report. Dear Mayor Gillich and City Council members, the City of Biloxi Tree Committee has several ideas to propose for your consideration today in today's bond matter, or in the future when opportunity arises. First, to support the City Tree Committee goals, we request that funding be considered for the following items. A, membership in the Mississippi Urban Forest Council, $150. B, purchase of CityWorks software as a mitigation tracking platform. I think we already use CityWorks. So anyway, I guess, anyway. Second, we hope you'll consider setting aside funding for our city parks in support of Biloxi Parks and Recreation Department goals as expressed on the city website. Beautification, a litter patrol, and possibly support for an additional staff person to oversee these goals, or else support for the coordination of a volunteer effort in these areas. Finally, we hope you'll consider setting aside some portion of the proposed bond money for future budget allotment for the purchase of land towards increasing the number of public parks, especially in Ward 7 where extensive development is underway. Biloxi would benefit greatly from a more equitable distribution of public parks throughout the city to bring beautification and nature-based recreation to the benefit of all our citizens. Additional parks would also provide space for developers to meet their mitigation requirements under the city's tree protection ordinance, while also providing neighborhood parks for new residential development. Adding parks will thus serve the public interest while it supports new development. Thank you for your consideration of our suggestions. Respectfully, Carol Campbell. That concludes my report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tisdale. Mr. Barrett?
I would just like to echo what I said last week. I am in support of the bond. I just, any items that are paid for from this bond, I feel very strongly that they need to be needs, not amenities, because we have many needs like you addressed. Just in Ward 7, we have a book of over $30 million of needs. And so I will support the bond, whatever we agree to as far as an amount. However, will not support any item that's not a need for the residents in the city.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. My report, the only item I have before we get to the policy agenda, I'd like to charge our CAO, Michael Leonard, with providing the council a full report on the efforts of NextSite, and give us some detail on, as much as you can, on what have they been doing. If you can, elaborate on what companies they've contacted, if that's possible, and just let us know what those efforts have done. I think we spent $40,000, to give them for their expertise, and I believe it's in our best interest to know where that's at. Okay, thank you.
But, I had a comment on that. I'd actually had to pull out a resolution. Next site is $28,000 for 3 years. I figure let them finish out to $28,000. They hadn't done anything, ain't brought anything to us, so we don't need to waste another $56 for nothing for the next 2 years. So I was going to ask this council to rescind that next 2 years. I mean, they hadn't showed up for anything, hadn't done anything. So that's another one we just wasted money. Some money, not a lot of money, but it's still $56,000 for the next 2 years.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the policy agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot citizens' comments. So let's back up a little bit. We have a total of 45 minutes allotted. Each person will have 3 minutes more or less. If you'd come up to the front, have a seat, write your name and address clearly on the document provided, and state your name and address clearly for the clerk to record. Proceed when you're ready. Thank you. Anyone else would like to come up and say anything? All right. Public comments is now closed. Move on to the policy agenda.
The intention of the mayor and city council is to issue a general obligation public improvement bonds in the maximum principal amount of $14 million.
Okay. Mike, you want to
Well,
have?
let me start, if I would, by advising you that our bond counsel, Jane Minardi, is here to answer any questions you might have. Our financial advisor, Jason Thomas, is in the rear of the room, and of course, Ken McEwen is here. And I think before we got into any other discussion, I would like Ken to answer your questions about debt. I think it's very important that the council be up to speed on exactly what is our debt today. What is our debt, what kinds of debt, and what is the totals? I think it's important for you to know that. And Ken, would you come up and walk them through? You'll find that there are documents in front of you. Item B in front of you is a list of the various government debts. Item C is a look at 5 years worth of that debt. And item D, Delta, is a large spreadsheet that shows the debt over time.
Ken, before you begin, I just want to personally offer my condolences to your brother. I know you had an accident recently, and we wish him a speedy recovery, okay? You're welcome.
That's B. C. That's C. Charlie.
5-year pay down.
5-year pay down.
$1,240,000 a year to $380,000 a year. But in 2023, that bond issue completely pays out. So it'll be dropping off about $405,000 in 2023. The next one after that is 2027, the one that's right below it. The General Obligation Series 2012. The next one after that appears to be the 2014A bond issue, 2029. And then you got 32 and 34. 32 being 2017 and 34 that's supposed to be 2014B instead of 15.
Baseball, right?
Yeah, it is baseball. So that's all your GO debt that you have at this time.
Could you answer me the question, what was each one of these passed for?
Well, I can speak to some. The 2017, y'all know about. Which one? Y'all know about the 2017 issue.
The total amount was passed was what?
7 million.
7 million. Okay, that's what I needed to find out.
The next one, the general obligation refunding issue of 2011. I'm not that issue was actually a refunding issue that basically consolidated 2 or 3 bond issues and refinanced them. So you'd have to go back to those original issues, which I'm not familiar with. That was 2011, a refunding issue.
That was a combination of 2 or 3 smaller bonds.
2 or 3 smaller bond issues. That's why we have it, partially paying out in the year 2020, but it still continues on because there was another issue combined with it.
Which one are you referring to? The second one.
The second one.
The third one on the list for fiscal year 2021, and this is series 2012, why does it go from 395 to 41,000 and then it jumps back up? Is that a typo? See where?
I do. I
Probably
can't
should
see
be
that's probably
410.
it's 410. It's supposed to be 410.
Yeah, you look at the bottom line, there's an adjustment difference of about 400,000, so.
Yep. That's a typo. You're right.
410?
What was the total amount to 2012 to start with? Do you know that?
I'm not sure. I don't think it was that big. The main purpose of that bond issue was to meters, to get these
Automated meters.
electronic meters that we have nowadays for the utility system, the radio read, or whatever they are.
Yeah.
Radio read. Yeah. So it's for that. That was the main purpose of that bond issue.
So that was that 6 million to start with?
Huh?
I thought it was 6 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right, about 6 million. I have the original amount here. Hold on a second. I thought I did. That's on another paper. I thought I brought that, but I didn't. But yeah, I think 6 million is right. And the next issue, the 2014A, y'all know about that one. Main purpose of that was to do a lot of paving.
At the $14 million.
Yeah, $14 million.
And that was, I know it made a lot of statements. I try to make these statements at the meeting. The intent of the council at that time was to spend $2 million in each ward. That's why it was $14 million. It was $2 million times 7 is $14 million. So all these statements, it wasn't, the intent of the council at that time was to spend $2 million in each ward. Whatever that ward needed, paving, infrastructure, that was the intent of it. Whether it's written in that resolution, so, no, that was the intent, 14 million, to spend it in those wards. Just like what you're looking at right now. All right, next.
Next one, it should say 214B. That was the one that was used to build MGM Park, along with a $15 million grant.
21 million
21 million.
is what we borrowed the money. That's the $1.6 million a year we paying back on MGM Stadium. It's about time to get that. So we building this walkway outside of the contract. It's just time to turn them over. Just turn that whole thing over to Board of Revised. You can save $400,000 or $500,000 a year because we pay all the bills. That was supposed to be built within the 36 million. So I don't know who's paying for this $3 million walkover. Who's going to maintain it? I mean, that's not. I'm asking them. I'm not asking you that. That's the problem. Who's going to maintain it once it's built? Whose responsibility for all that? For both of these walkovers. That's a lot of money.
That one's being built with MDOT funds.
I don't know any of the building. Somebody got to maintain what they've done. That's the problem. That's an expense. You know?
So, Mr. McEwen, I got a question. If we did a $14 million bond in 2023, the balance without doing additional bond is 27 million and some change, correct? And if we did a $14 million bond, it would probably pay down to about 10 million by 23. So our total debt would be about 37 million as compared to 42 million as it sits today. Is that a fair conclusion?
Okay, now 27 million wouldn't change with this 14 million. That's in
No.
addition.
What I'm saying is, you got the bonds that are listed here.
Yes.
And if we made our payments by 23, the balance would be 27 million, right? A total of all the bonds by 2023, correct?
Principal balance,
The principal balance. And if this council passed another $14 million bond today, in 4 years, it would probably pay down to about 10 or 11 million, right?
that's right.
So if you add 11 million to that total, I'll say 11, we'd be looking at 38 million balance as opposed to the $42 million balance as it sits today. With that additional bond, it would be about 38 million in 23. Okay.
Mr. President, let me jump in too. From this other sheet, this multicolored sheet, you might note that you mentioned 2023, that given where we are right now, and Mr. Miller's over here, we're talking about dropping off the radar, if we do nothing, the current load to do all those debt was like 8.96 mils, that at the end of 23, you reduced that by 1.7 mils, okay?
Yep.
The margin, I'm trying to say, by 23. 23 seems to be a decent target.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay.
Mr. Barrett?
Thank you.
On this new bond that we're considering taking on the 14 million, what would our annual payment be approximately on that?
$1.1 million.
The estimate we have right now, and this is a little bit higher, this number to run with a 1.54 million into the project fund. That's the effect that selling bond and premium would have. But 20 years, estimated true interest cost at 3.68%, it'd be 1.015 million in annual interest.
Put that on pretty quick then.
So that's $1,015,000?
That's right.
Okay.
And once again, understand it'd be a little bit less because once they actually get a true structure of this, it's still only 14 million in project fund, probably only borrow about 13.9, but premium bonds.
So I have another question. So this bond that retires in 23, our balance on that is 2.8 at this time, correct? So if we were to take 14 million and we didn't have $14 million worth of projects that we were all willing to consider, could we roll that 2.8 into this bond so that we don't have this $1.24 million payment next year and then the 400,000 basically from there on out, and it would lower our overall debt as far as outgo for those 5 years?
Higher than what we would, 3.86, so any rates higher than that?
Well, what's the interest on that bond?
I'm just asking hypothetically if we
If you don't use 14 million, you
Yeah.
use what you can to pay the rest of it.
yeah, and we pay this 2.8 off, and then our
Jane, let me add, there's a,
Required by law to use the proceeds of
can we have that as one of the things that we issue the bond for, to pay off an existing bond?
Jane, before we do that, what's the value of that money? If that money is coming to us at a cheaper cost, why would we do that? So what's the interest rate of that bond?
Yeah, I understand. I'm just asking hypothetically. Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
We get us nothing, that's right, yeah. So that probably that makes sense. No more than that. We did do a little payoff in the bond when we got the BP settlement money. We paid 3 or 4 of them off, didn't we? Those were notes. Yeah, notes, okay. Well, anyway, we got rid of those notes.
Okay, yeah. All right, just a question. All right, that's all I have.
My other question is, how much money we owe other places, other bonds, not GO bonds? How much money you owe totally?
Okay, well,
We paying about $6 million a year in bond money?
I've got a schedule here that basically shows, now this is through 2017, so y'all have this schedule too. So you could take the 2018 row off of it. But basically it lists out, at the end of 2017, we owed $23,721,000 in TIF funds. Okay, that's a limited obligation bond issue. But those don't go in, they don't factor into our limit as far as the 15% that we're capped at. So that's not a part of that. But you owe the $23 million in TIF funds and TIF bonds. Also, you have some leases and notes that you owe, and that totals at the end of 2017 $3,254,965.
Yeah, my question is just money we paying out. That's what my question is, not just the GO bond. I'm talking about the total money that the city's paying out for all our debt, I guess you could call it. Because if you do this bond here, you're going to debt another $1 million.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to find out what we actually paying out right now for everything. You can't just ignore one because it's a GO bond and this is a note. We paying these notes.
All of that is serviced by that village that we've got set aside, whether it's a general obligation, limited obligation, or leases. That's all described in this one piece of paper.
Right. Right. It's in here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what we paying out. That's what we need to know. That's why we actually request total amount that we paying out per year. Do we want to add another note to that amount? That's the question.
Right there.
Yeah. You know, like you said, if they want to just do $6 or $7 million, well, that's going to cost you $500,000 a year. There's a big difference. Then just go ahead and borrow $14 million because you can borrow $14 million. We're allowed to need money next year for something else. So sometimes you don't have to do all that. Just borrow what you need right now and pay that note if you want to borrow money. And that's up to the council. If they want to borrow 6 or 7.
Up to $14 million is what the resolution
Right.
asks for.
Yeah. But I mean, like Nathan and them, we're all saying we need to know exactly. That's why we have these workshops. What we,
This is exact.
no, no.
This describes
What
the
we,
whole ball
I'm
game.
talking about why we borrowing $14 million. That's why we're having this workshop.
That's right.
That's right. So they can decide what they want to borrow, if they want to borrow anything. You know, there's the options that we had that we don't have to borrow money. You know?
A comment,
Well, let me make one comment too. If you need to do projects, this is a way to do the project. If you don't need to do any projects, there's no borrowed money. But if there are projects that need to be done, this is the way to get it done. Y'all decide what projects need to be done. You know, we've got ideas, we've got some commitments, and the idea is how you want to get it done. The longer you wait, the more it costs. The less, customer service, people see, hey, they're doing the thing. That's the whole idea. I'm not saying exactly what or exactly how much, but this is the way to get it done. The debt is serviceable. Is that not right? The debt is serviceable. So
no change, no tax, no tax increase.
if you capitalize some things in business, you've got an idea of what you need to put in the ground so you can make money and service our customers, our citizens.
All right, just let me make a comment. So this workshop is exactly what it's designed to be, a workshop. So part of what the administration asked is for each council person to submit a list of projects to consider. I know I submitted one to the administration. Mr. Tisdale submitted one. I don't know who else submitted anything, or if they have something today, or they want to just verbalize it today in this workshop. I think once we do that, we can see what that total looks like, including consideration of what the administration has proposed, and see what that number looks like, and then if it needs to be modified, and then if we can come to a consensus with the council and get the majority votes to move forward. So, Mike, do you have that information, or do we need to discuss it now, one by one?
I do, Council President. I can start with yours. I have it in writing from Councilman Tisdale. I have a verbal from Councilman Barrett, and then I would ask the other council persons to.
I would encourage everybody maybe to make a running total of these items, and then whether you agree or disagree, we can then debate it after we get all those items on the table. Is that okay to proceed in that fashion? Everybody agreeable to that?
I don't know, we're having a discussion, that's what we're here for.
All right, Mike, go ahead and run them down, and we'll do our best to kind of keep a tally over here.
Okay, Council Ward 6, this is a list. Elsie Drive, $1 million. Elsie Drive is on our general list already, so Council at Ward 6 is agreeing that should stay on the list. $3 million paving bond allocated appropriately to Ward 6 needs at least $250,000 for paving projects. $100,000 for the Scrimetta drainage issue. $50,000 for A.J. Holloway Sportsplex. $30,000 for improved lighting on Pops Ferry Road. $150,000 for drainage issues and ditch clearance in Ward 6. $10,000 for signage at the intersection of Cedar Lake and Pops Ferry, and $75,000 to install covered culverts on Campbell Drive. I would sum that up by saying, with the exception of LZ Drive, these are the kinds of small projects that I know would drive in all of you nuts, because they're not big, but they're also bigger than normally can get done in a department budget. And I think that is the reason why we set aside over $3 million in this bond for just those kinds of projects. So this is as we've done in this last year and these last 2 years since the administration has had the bond, the quote-unquote paving bond. We have used that along with $1 million in municipal paving that came from the GO17 bond, and we have used that over and over again for smaller projects that couldn't get done in the department budgets. Those are all very worthwhile projects, and I think they all could be done within the $3 million general repair and paving capital project that's on the list.
So I'm just tallying this up. If we folded that into the paving and infrastructure improvements, that would come up to roughly, and this may be off a penny or two, $725,000. So it would be the $1 million for LZ, and then it would be a $725,000 allocation for these projects within the $3 million paving bond. That's what it would come up to.
That adds up on my side too. And I understand as we go through the year, each of those projects could be done. Obviously, those are not hard estimates. They're just like everything else we do at this stage.
What's the purpose of the LZ
They're just a
Drive?
guess.
Extension from Santa Maria all the way to Walmart Road.
For what? I know and what is that supposed to do?
Yeah.
Developer came to us and asked us about the TIF bond for the road going to to a Walmart. That was part of his plan. The long-term plan was to develop, I think, like a medical district type place to build offices and spaces for professionals through that area. As we've already kind of created a medical district right there, he was wanting to build out that road all the way back and around, so it would have a direct thoroughfare through the whole place.
This connects to Medical Park Drive. So what LZ Drive did with Jimmy Lane, he built that road with some TIF bonds from the new Walmart and the apartments, and got part of that road built, LZ Drive. We now want to connect LZ to Medical Park Drive.
That's gonna cost $1 million?
It's
Sidewalks, drainage.
lighting.
Now, you guys keep saying $1 million, but you started off at 1.5, and on the paper it's 1.5. Do we have is it 1.5 or is it 1 million?
That's our best guess right now.
It's 1.5
I mean, the
or 1
design
million?
is nearly complete.
What's the bottom line? They keep saying 1 million, but this says 1.5.
Mhm.
Okay, mine has 1.5.
I asked to modify that slightly because I think we can get some grants and some other things for the
Just-
sidewalks. That's why.
Council, as a process, what would we would recognize these as legitimate requirements. We would put them into the department, have the department look at each one and develop an estimate. If design was required, it could be done in-house, it would be done in-house. Most of these could be done in-house. And then we develop a project, and we bring that project back to council for approval. So let's say the $50,000 for the A.J. Holloway Sports Complex. I don't know what's required there. We'd have to go find out what's required. We'd use that as a guide, how much money we put against that project. We'd bring back to you a developed project with a good estimate, and you would approve that project, and we would fund it from the bond, out of that one capital project, which is the overall capital project.
I thought you said it was from Paul's Tisdale. Supposed to be his ward?
I haven't
That's
gotten
not his
to
ward.
Ward 5 yet.
The skinny,
That's my word.
yeah, but so that's what you turned in?
Yes, that's what I
Okay,
turned.
all right. So I thought you said
So-
Paul Tisdale. I said,
No.
well, it ain't nothing to do with Paul Tisdale.
Well, Paul turned in some project ideas, and you see on here it's Pennzoil Park and different things that are in Paul's ward. So those were just the two councilmen that I think gave you guys
Correct.
Turns it
some
in. okay.
projects.
I could do the
Okay.
same thing now with Ward 5. We actually have a PowerPoint. You have a list, though. Yep. Got it. And again, following that same process, we would accept these as legitimate requirements. We'd put them into the engineering department to review and develop a project. We'd come back to the council with the project. If approved, the project would then be funded from out of that 3 million and change capital project. It's frequently done that we fund multiple projects out of a single capital project. It's really just we had one capital project this last year that was called municipal paving. We funded a whole series of small jobs out of that municipal paving capital project. So we certainly don't want to have 50 capital projects. So these smaller jobs, the ones that fall into that category of don't fit into the department budget, but are not as big as a full-blown capital project, we'll just fund those out of that $3 million. This is the first time we've done this, set aside $3 million for nothing other than just infrastructure repair and minor paving jobs. Ward 5 is here's another typical list. Geez, I'm looking at it. This is not the same list.
Yeah, I'll cover this.
Yeah,
I don't think so, but I may have inadvertently. But in the handout that I shared with everybody up here, it's going to be the top of the page on the left. The first item is the Pine Grove Avenue. There's a drainage line that's collapsing. I don't know what that would cost. $800,000, $1 million. Okay. So that's and these are ongoing things regardless of size. The next thing is to pipe the Churchill Avenue ditch. I've talked with Supervisor Rocco. I mean, the estimate I got from her engineer a couple of years ago, I think was $120,000, and that was just for material. And it may vary some, but I have a commitment of $50,000 from her towards that project.
So what would be the total request from the bond?
I would say from the bond, maybe 100, you would double it? All right, so if the figure I had was roughly, I think 120 or 130, double that, 250. So if you need a figure, we'll plug in 250. Then you have, I'm thinking Snyder improvements. I don't know how old the Snyder Center is now, but it's probably 15, 18 years old, I guess. 2000, 18 years old. But I understand they had a chiller go out earlier this week, and then the second chiller went out, so I don't know if they need to be repaired or replaced. You got the Olympic pool, that bottom of the pool needs to be finished. I'm told that part of the rebar is rusting, so you can see spots in the bottom from the rusting rebar. Then you've got, I don't know if it's stainless steel, but some kind of shiny steel-like trim all around, and it's rusting, and that's the pretty pictures if you want to look at them. Then, in the Snyder Center, you've got the therapeutic pool. It's a little warmer, significantly smaller, basically the same issues. Refinish the bottom, replace the trim that's rusting. And then you have an ongoing ventilation issue. I don't know what can be done about that. And it's a concern because you have senior citizens swimming in the morning, and they clean the deck and everything with Clorox, so that when you're swimming in the morning, that smell of chlorine is a killer. So they open the north doors, even in January, February, or whatever, crack the windows on the west wall to get some of the odor out. So now you're swimming in 60, the pool's warm, but who wants to get out of the pool when it's 58 degrees? When you're out of the water, you get the idea. Then you've got the fence along the perimeter of the Snyder Center, and it's the termites are eating it up. It's missing boards, it's falling apart. And of course you have all those residents adjacent to the property. It's not their fence, but they've got to look at it. Then you have Pennzoil Parks. You have a walking track, and there are a couple of types of tracks that you can put down. They have a real nice cushion track over in Pass Christian. Went and looked at it. I understand it's pricey. You're also in a heavily wooded park, lots of tree roots. They have what's left of an asphalt walking track there. So my guess is, the cheap version is probably 30, 40, 50,000. The pricey version, and we could have something nice in Ward 5. Might be 100,000. I don't know. I'm working with Beverly Martin to get a cost on that. You got a sign that needs to be repainted at the park, and you've got playground equipment that, because of its age, raises liability issues. I'm told if they have to replace something, they've actually got to make what's going to be replaced. Anyway. Next thing, we got small project, Big Lake Avenue and the northbound lane. That was repaved a number of years ago. And right there in the infamous dip on the northbound lane, there's a drain, and it's starting to deteriorate right there by the drain. It's going to be a real big issue in another few months. And the last thing I have listed is Eastview Drive, which is in Edgewater Estates. West of Goose Point, there's a drainage line, probably an easy fix, between two box drains. Just go in, tear it up, put a new line down, pave that section, and you're good to go. But it's a safety issue because of the dip, and it's just roads and the sand and all those associated erosion or collapsing or deteriorating issues. So that's all I got. A lot of them, as you said, Mike, a lot of what's listed here, they're small nitpicky projects that just don't get done because the departments don't have the money in their budget, and we're worried about trying to tackle big things. So,
Councilman, what would be your request in your ward? What's the?
The first thing is, I think the drainage line on Pine Grove Avenue is got to be replaced. The second thing would be that Churchill Avenue, the ditch. cover it, get rid of the issue, because that Churchill Avenue is deteriorating near the north end, even though there was a quick fix, probably cost, I don't know, $60,000-$80,000 with that netting, Christie, but it's eroding all under the netting, so it's an issue that's gonna be ongoing. You could just fill that. And then, the walking track, work with the county on that. And then whatever can be done at Snyder Center, there's a laundry list there.
So that total amount comes to what?
Practically free.
Yeah, again, I don't know exactly, but looks to me like 6 projects, one of which being the Snyder Center with a long laundry list behind it, somewhere $750,000 to $800,000. The largest of it being the Pine Grove Avenue drainage line, which we knew was gonna be about $250,000.
Right, I mean, the big hitters are the drain, pipe in the ditch at Churchill and Pine Grove. I mean, Snyder, I mean, it's just another facility you gotta maintain. I mean, part of the issue, Mr. Millage interjected, part of the issue is you can only do obviously what you have the money to do. And we're borrowing money to do these projects, but we really aren't socking any money away. We're not in a position to sock much money away to do other capital projects or fund some of these little projects in department budgets.
Something I shared with Council President earlier was that it takes 2 to 3 years to spend a bond. That just in the normal process of going through, finishing the design, putting the bids out, awarding contracts, and so forth. So, for example, the 2017 bond that this council approved, the 2017 bond, which we ended up with, out of the $7 million, something like $6.5 million to spend, we've still got almost $4 million that isn't spent yet. Now, it's committed to fire stations and things that are under construction. So by the end of this year, we'll have the 3rd year, we'll have spent that bond. And the one that you're looking at today, the $14 million and the projects we're talking about, is probably the only other GO bond that you will see as a council during your term, because we're talking about a 3-year spend. Now, obviously, I'm trying to lay some groundwork here that I've heard from 2 wards right now, and they add up to 7 and 8, 15 projects, if you will, for $1.5 million, all of which are requirements, all of which are things that need to be done. And what we'd have to do in each case is to take those Snyder Center project, for example, to go do an inspection of it, get estimates. In some cases, we can do purchase orders even on smaller things, get quotes, but charge them back to that $3 million kitty that we're setting up for general maintenance for municipal repairs and paving.
Well,
The question is the 3 million, we've only heard for 2 wards, and we got $1.5 million
No,
worth of requirements.
Exactly, and I think the point the mayor has been trying to make now over a couple of meetings is there's plenty of work to be done.
Yep.
This could be for $50 million, and I bet we'd still say, geez, we're over 50 million, we can't do it all. So there is work to be done. We've heard what it'll cost. We're just trying to nail down so everybody's happy. If you do a little something for us and we know you have to do something, that's what we're trying to get to.
And Christie can, if you're sitting there, that's
Feel
okay. We can use CityWorks, our planning software, and each and every one of these requirements, we could put a work order in and set the work order up to be validated. You would be able to get a report. We could run a report for you every month to show the status of each one of these projects, and each one is going to have to come back to you for approval as a project.
Funding source. Some of these projects may have multiple funding sources. So I mean that's the ability to contact manage these things in a couple of different ways. Let me add one thing though. How about the enclave and the drainage that has been there forever? Is there some need there in the enclave?
The enclave, because it was a low mod area, that was a CDB project that was probably done. There were phase 1 and phase 2 started before I was on the council and finished up. And the drainage issue there affected the area around the enclave, and that has been rectified. That's a big improvement there.
That's also the project that we're working on today, are we not? And including putting a fence in?
Right,
Keep
that's
people from going
I
through
call it the swale. There's an underground drainage system, and then there's a swale above it to move the water when there's extraordinary rainfall, but it leads to some issues, a lot of traffic, some associated with crime, and there's some erosion issues. And I checked with Christy, and she's nailing that down. I think we're going to be moving ahead shortly on that, but I think that will resolve some issues.
Yeah. But again, the pattern we're seeing is that we're getting a lot of big projects funded with capital projects with bond money. We're doing a lot of little small things that are just everyday stuff with the department budgets, but there's a whole host of small projects that are falling through the cracks. They're just not getting done. So again, what administration is recommending is a healthy capital project for municipal repairs and paving, which we can use to fund as many of those small jobs until we run out of money.
All right, is that it, Mr. Tisdale? You got you. All right, so we've heard from 2 wards. I got a total of $1,660,000, and you have a total of how much? I never got that number.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, what is the number? I mean,
I don't know what's gonna, if you did 2 or 3 of these, it's probably gonna be $1 million. I don't think Pine Grove.
well, just the 2, the 800 and the 250 are $1 million.
See,
That's a
I mean,
million.
this is what we don't know at this point. We know Pine Grove has got a problem. We don't know if we're going to be able to stitch-form it or line it, or we're going to have to dig it up and replace it. We don't know that yet. Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Okay. Well, let's move on. What's the next councilman that wants to go next?
I'd like to make a few statements, that's
Okay,
all.
go ahead.
I'd like to address this to the mayor and Mike Leonard. We got BP money supposed to be coming. How much more Thailand money can we get? Can we get any money from BMR? How much money can we actually receive from these people to help us do what we need to do?
Well, there's Go Mesa money, there's BP money, and there's infrastructure money coming from internet sales, all of which are in the pipeline. And that's one of the things when I talk about, do we have somebody that can look on behind the curtain in Jackson? We don't know what's coming yet. We know that in 2020, the infrastructure money from internet sales was supposed to be like $1.3 million. We don't know about BP money yet, and we don't know about Go Mesa money yet. We don't know what our share is going to be.
Yeah. know it's supposed to be 30 million, like you said, for the next 14 years to the coast, not us. Yeah, yeah, the BP. And we was hoping to get 4 to 5. Yeah. Well, that's why I was seeing how much money we can get in. Maybe we don't need to borrow as much money we have to. I'm just saying, so, you know, you don't want to put the, well, that's why I was just looking at stuff like that. Don't borrow somewhere we don't have to borrow. Don't get in debt for any, just for a reason to get it, because you can borrow 14 million. You know, like you said, we could all could probably put 2 or 3 million in each one of these wards. There's always something you need to do, but then you have to take priority and do the best thing which you can. See, just like me, my thing, right. Right. You take just like Ward 1, 2, and even part of 3 now is so messed up. It's hard to say what we really need until you get this stuff finished. I mean, he's got a lot of problems he wasn't done. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done in Ward 1. And a lot of development can go in Ward 1 like we were discussing, because that's the hot area where it's going to be developing the businesses and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's my problem, passing anything until you get to the nuts and bolts. I have had no problem with that. I mean, you got one thing listed here about spending $150,000 in the post office. I spent $150,000 in the public safety building and finished the 3rd floor. That's our building. Well, I'm just saying, whatever it costs. When you want to build, that's our building. That's not our building. No, that's what we're talking about. It is a subject now. No, I didn't say that. I'm saying why put 150,000 in somebody else's building? This is our building. What is it going to cost us to fix the 3rd floor? Right. That's my question.
So, Councilman, is there any projects on this existing list, or are there any projects in your ward that you want to add, and do you have an amount that you want to propose?
I would like to get some kind of figure, engineer, somebody. We ain't got to pay them $500,000 to tell us what it's going to cost to fix the 3rd floor. What would it actually cost to finish out the 3rd floor in a building that the city owns? Period. Okay. You know, that's something. Well, that's what we're sitting here talking about. That's our building. Let's fix it. You know.
So instead of 150, you're saying it would take 300,000.
I'm talking about public safety building. No, that, man, that's gonna cost us $180,000 a year, gonna cost us $15,000 a month in a couple of years. That's what I'm saying. We have buildings, we can take care of our own stuff. But I'm just saying, I mean, that's what the, building.
That's not post office.
That's what I said, that's what I said, don't put it in somebody else's building. What is it gonna cost us to do the third floor in our building that we own? Well, I'm just saying, it's fine. That's good as piping somebody's yard. That's good as anything else we're doing, you know? And then we create and save money in the long run, because we own the building. And we ain't gotta pay anybody anything.
So
Well,
what
I mean,
should
it
we
doesn't
do
matter.
about it? It's sitting there, what should we
Yeah,
do
I
about
mean,
public safety third
it's
floor?
our building.
All right, so if we did fix it, what would it be used for? So will always be a storage space? That's all what we're gonna be able to use it for?
No, I don't know if I believe that. I mean, it's something you can always, you can fix anything. You throw money, you can fix anything. I'm telling you, that right. You can fix it, you gotta fix the leak. You can't let the water run down the walls and anything. So you have to fix that, you know? Whether you wanna use it for people or not. But I mean, you're going out spending $180,000 a year somewhere else, and you won't spend it on your own building. Whatever it takes, at least get somebody to let us know what it would cost to fix this building. This is my job, well, you could, it's gonna cost you money, but you could do that, you know. But just like anything else you do. Sure, it ain't a problem. But you bring somebody that knows what they're doing to tell you what it takes to get it fixed. Whoever that gotta be, you know.
Okay, is there any
Well,
common
hey,
ground?
that's what I'm talking about.
Is there any common ground on the $3 million bond, Mr. Lawrence, that maybe you can use some of that for some road improvement?
Well, as I said, it's kinda hard with the FEMA. You know, I won't know until all the smoke clears.
Okay.
What actually we need with all the parks and everything else we have in Ward 1. But I mean, you gotta wait till they start finishing the stuff, and they kinda get there. It's a bad contractor, they year and a half behind, that's all.
Okay.
It's just
Mr.
a
Garnes,
problem.
I'm gonna move on to you.
Yeah, I got a couple of things I wanted to address. With the $14 million bond, I like to look at some quality of life concerns I have, especially for the East Side community, which includes George Ward, and of course Ward 1, 2, and some of 3. Recreation. In the past, we've had 3 areas of recreation, 3 community centers, and now we have none. And I think I spoke with Mike earlier last week about a pre-engineered building. We do own the old baseball stadium on the side of Yankee Bohanovich Stadium, and so that's property that belonged to us. And with the help of maybe our partners, the supervisors, we can possibly look at putting up a facility there in that area. I know we talked about maybe getting a price on that. I don't know about what if you had a chance to look at anything like that, but I would like to task Christie with kind of looking at some prices on and possibly looking at some sufficient size building of a pre-engineered building to put up for recreational purposes in the East Side community. The old Mercy Cross is not quite. I have a lot of concerns about it, where it stands now, and the kids going down in that area. The second thing I wanted to look at was of course we beat this around, the grocery store investment that we talked about. I wanted to really look at that. That would also help the Ward 1 and 2 area. We have a lack of a grocery outlet, so to speak, and if we can give that some serious consideration. We had some plans on that. We know it's still somewhat of a concept, but if we can look at that a little deeper, that would help. The third item I had was lighting. As Division Street starting to clean up, now we can pass through there. As I drive back and forth, I have some safety issue concerns. I was looking at the lighting, very dark, very dark. A lot of the street lights need to be replaced. So we need to start looking at some of those street lights. Still look like we have a lot of spider webs when we drive through there. So we need to start looking at Mississippi Power, cleaning up the power lines, and also providing adequate lighting or even replacing those lightings. As I drove through the last night or two, I noticed there are probably 10 to 15 lights that are out, that just don't burn. And I know the area has been neglected because of the heavy construction. But my main concern is the main artery going into the east side of Biloxi is Division Street. And with the sidewalks coming now, lighting it up will alleviate some of those safety concerns, which leads me into the other area of our homeless situation. We need to kind of look at putting some money toward that, some serious concern toward that, because like I said, we got lighting issues, so now that also brings about safety concerns, and with the homelessness that's taking place, there are a lot of concerns, especially in this downtown area, the area that I represent. So we're gonna have to start looking. I even went to the hospital to visit some of the sick in my community, and I get an earful about the homeless. I know that it's gonna take at least $250,000 to address and deal with a lot of that, those issues that are out there. So we need to really take a good hard look at that. Christy and I talked a little bit about the Rodenberg drainage problem. And right now, I don't know if you've gotten a price on it yet or put any numbers on it, but okay. Absolutely. And right now, I'm looking between Rodenberg and Iberville. There's a pipe in the middle of that's have come up out of the ground, which is restricting a lot of that water flow from the Garden Park area and all of that housing area. So if we can just look at that spot to get started, to move that forward, that would alleviate some of those areas, and that ties into the Ward 2/3 area, somewhat to speak.
Can I ask a question? Is any of that part of the FEMA project, the $30 million that's left, that's out of that area? So it has nothing to do with the FEMA project coming? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so those are some of the surface concerns that I have. If I had to put a dollar amount, I was guessing maybe about 3 million in there if I was guessing, but those are some lighting. It's very, very serious. And like I said, reinvesting in the community, giving, we 39530 is the fastest growing area on the coast right now. So recreation is paramount for our youth that are coming up, and having somewhere to go that keeps crime down. That's, statistics all show. So that could be paramount. So those are some things that I wanted you to consider, and maybe looking at implementing it as part of your plan, Mayor. So thank you, and that concludes my report.
I'm gonna ask about the lighting.
Okay. Let's finish up. We still got to hear from 3 more council members.
Yeah, I just want to ask one question. On the lighting, is it a responsibility of the city, or do we go through Mississippi Power to have that done? Yeah, but I'm just saying, like you talking about the lighting, are they gonna put the poles and we just pay for the electricity? That's what I'm asking. He talking about lighting up these streets, but we've been talking about that for a lot of years, lighting these streets up.
We pay for a service. Right.
We talking about lights on.
There's some that we actually own, like going over to the south side of the tracks, over by the Bush Park area. I think we own those, and then there's some that we're contracted out with the
Right.
power company. So we just have to find out who's responsible for what, and then have it taken care of.
If the poles up, all you gotta do is light them up. All
But I
you gotta do
just
is light
wanted
them
to
up. But
bring that to the
you don't borrow
attention.
money, that's paying a light bill. But I'm just saying, I wanna make sure, there's a lot of streets around here you need to light up more. I mean, it's always safety issue, so you gotta light them up. If you gotta go to the power company, or we did it, it doesn't matter. That's something that needs to be done. I've been pounding that for the last 10 years. We go, yeah, we're gonna look at it. Well, it's past looking at it. Thank you. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Ms. Newman, you want to state your case?
Yes, of course I have drainage issues and paving. I would like to see more paving in our ward, especially the roads leading up to the schools. I see tons of potholes and things like that on the way to schools and the kids who have to walk and whatnot. So I would like to see at least paving up towards the schools, which we have Pops Ferry Elementary, we have Jeff Davis, and another one, I believe. I know a new roof has been needed on West Biloxi Library, so if we could look into see what we can do about that. But my number one project that absolutely has to be done is Floyd Drive in Tanglewood. And I know there's other issues in Tanglewood, but Floyd Drive has been number one on my list because the water and whatnot keeps busting, and they're in the middle of taking a shower and then it's just done. And they've been going through this for years, so we've got to put that on the list. And I know that project alone has been quoted 1-point-something million, so we've got to get that going for these people. Floyd Drive in Tanglewood. Mhm. Mhm. Which is wonderful, but definitely got to get on Floyd because they've been waiting way too long, and that's my major project, especially. The West Biloxi Library? No, that's not in my ward. The only one in my ward is off Pass Road. I don't think so. Do we own that building? Okay. She said she thinks so. Mhm. 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 Anyway, if I can't get nothing else, please put Floyd Drive down. Thank you.
All right, all right, all right. Well, I think that the number one concern in my ward is the same concern that I had when we passed the $14 million paving bond. And when you look, we authorized the $30,000 for the study of the roads. We saw that the roads in my ward have been the most neglected in the city, and there's a lot of needs with that paving. I mean, the entire wood area is what I call it: Gladewood, Laurelwood, Bluewood. All of those roads are crumbling. I mean, literally, they look like gravel roads, black gravel roads, as well as on the other side of the bridge, Meadow and Parkway in that area, Orleans. Those roads have to be addressed. I know that LeBonterre's concrete roads are coming apart too, and concrete roads are the worst because I mean, they're so expensive and their life isn't like asphalt or as easy as asphalt is to replace. I think we have the county doing on the green. Did they committed to on the green, correct? And so those are a lot of the. I mean, my ward is riddled with paving issues, and then we have some drainage concerns like Whitney. The piping on Whitney wasn't designed at the time the area was created to support the amount of water and runoff that comes from all the subsequent developments. And so that drain, I think we priced that at about $1 million for that one drainage. And then the Carol Lee drainage, something's wrong with Carol Lee and it doesn't drain sufficiently. So I think we priced that at $500,000 for that project. And so those are projects that already have work orders numbers attached to those. Those are some of the more important issues. The wetlands easement, it's only $30,000 or $40,000, but we still haven't appropriated the funds to finish clearing out that wetlands easement behind Bo Shin. That's something that I think we've talked about a couple times, and we keep intending to get it done, and it just hasn't gotten done yet. But that is something that needs to be funded and get done. The other issue, outside of just paving, we have some park and recreational issues. You know, the fields over there at Pops Ferry Road need to be top dressed very badly. The quasi dog park, former baseball park, isn't designed to handle that type of traffic and mud, and there needs to be some irrigation or alteration. We talked about a new project of moving the dog park to a different place, and I currently have Miss Bell pricing out what it would cost to do what we talked about, and incorporating the wasted space by the pickleball courts and that wooded area of the trees that are next to the basketball courts. So those are the issues that we have in my ward. But I mean, it's for me, it's getting caught up on the lack of spending from the last bond for paving. Right. So that leads me to, if you look at that study and you look at the orange and the red areas that are in my ward, what is the linear foot and what's the cost, and how much would that cost to plug into this bond? Right. And I agree with that, and I'm sure we can get the county on board to do some assistance in some of those areas. Right. And so when I get with, thank you. Okay, great. And as soon as Miss Bell gives me a projected cost on the project that we need to do for that Pops Ferry Park area. Sorry, Bixby was saying something. Yeah, that's right. I'll get that cost to you as soon as I get it from her.
All right, Mr. Barrett.
I'd like to start by, Mr. Tisdale had read a letter from Carol Campbell to start out, and one of her requests was land in Ward 7 for parks. We have the land in place already that doesn't need to be purchased. We just need the parks. We have 3 areas that I think we're wanting to put parks. One of them is the Eagle Point, the lagoon that was just shut down, the sewer lagoon. One at the new fire station, and then one the county is going to partner with the city at the current place where there's a park and there's where the library, the mobile home used to be. There's several acres there, so we have a place for the 3 parks. We don't need the land, we just need the parks. And so I just start a preface with saying that. I could go on all day about my needs, but as far as ask, on this list that y'all provided, I did the math, and 40%, if we were to do a $14 million bond, 40% of the ask on this list that y'all provided is for Ward 7. And I understand the need of the rest of the wards as well, so I'm not going to be selfish and ask for all that. The 2 things, in my opinion, that I would like to see come out of this bond is the drainage project that's discussed, and that will not only affect the area in which the drainage project is done, it'll affect everything in the surrounding areas too, because it's just like it's a domino effect. Because of the lack of drainage and that's in that area, it's affecting a major portion, crossing over 67 into other subdivisions and everything. It's affecting a major area of Ward 7 because of that one area all backing up. And so it's just a domino effect. So that's one of the asks. The other is we have, I believe it's a $1.1 million grant on the sidewalks. Is that correct? And we have to give $200,000 to do that. That's a no-brainer in my opinion. I know there's some other things, and I told Mr. Leonard, I know the mayor, one of his things is he's wanting to do improvements to the community center / library that we bought last year. I'm not going to ask for it. I'm going to let the mayor convince you one way or the other, because I really don't want to be selfish, because I know that everybody else has major needs in the city. But these 2 things I would really like to happen, I think that it would be a great step forward in our ward. As far as the other, I'm not going to, go against you on that. However, I'm not going to ask. That's not going to be one of my asks. The parking area. Yeah. Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 projects on here that are listed that's in Ward 7. Like I said, it equals 40%. Just the 2 that I'm asking for is 26% of the $14 million bond. But anytime it rains, any of you guys can come out there and drive East Woolmarket Road, and it's an absolute nightmare. I mean, you have cars going underwater. You have houses getting water in them. It's really unacceptable to have that major, and we have drainage issues all through the ward, but that area much more so than anywhere else. For a city like Biloxi, it's unacceptable to have that, and we have to get that corrected. That has to be corrected. And then the sidewalks is a no-brainer. There's other things like other people ask for. We need parks. We have drainage issues where we need ditches cleaned out and things all through the ward. But as far as out of the bond, my 2 asks are going to be the east and west on Wool Market Road drainage project. I think that's what they're being called. And the 200,000 match for the sidewalk bond. And then, you know, whatever in addition to that the administration wants to ask for in the ward. But as far as me, that's my two. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I know we've had a lot of dialogue. I don't know what the next step is. So. All right. So it's my understanding that you're taking the council's suggestions, you're going to put a value on them, and you're going to come back and tell us what those values are for each of these individual asks, correct? That's one. Two, I'm going to have to ask this during this workshop. You've provided a list. Does anyone want to bring any of these items up for debate, whether we should remove them or modify them? Okay. All right, so so per Mr. Lawrence's comment, we want to see what that total list looks like. We know it's going to increase, of course, because we've added some significant numbers, and then we'll come back to the table at some point and try to say this is palatable on what we're willing to go forward with some sort of bond issue if we get the votes. Whenever it is. Okay. Ms. Minardi, if you give Mr. Barrett 1 moment, he wants to make a comment.
Just one more comment. In addition to those, I said I wasn't going to ask for anything else. I do need some paving done, and I know that we have an agreement on 2 major stretches that the county is going to help us on. I think we're going 50-50 with them, Lorraine Road, maybe Cedar Lake, but there are some other areas that need to be, you know, paved, and you're aware of the ones. We have the study that are worse, you know, needed the most. And it's nothing, it's not major. A lot of our roads we have had paved. However, there are some that you know need to be paved in that paving or infrastructure section that we're going to have as well. And that's all.
The 45,000 we paid to look at all the roads need to be paved. Did you have any of those listed in any project? So we know which ones you want to do? There was $45,000 we spent, and we got the book back. That was the reason I'm asking that, because they're asking about having some of these roads paved. They might be involved already with the paving. Because there's some, like Mike said, there's some you can glaze over, make them last a long time. There's a lot of things you could do to them. So if these people in all the different wards have those same streets in there, then you need to tell them, yeah, we looked at that already. It was about 45,000. We're going to do this, we can do that, we can do that, whatever street there might be. Might be the ones in Ward 7, 6, 5, it doesn't matter. We need to know that if that's part of this bond money. Like Demon said, he don't ever get any streets paved. So anyway. But we need to have that brought to us to let you know which one we plan on doing. That's all part of this. That's
Ms. Minority, we'd like to hear from you.
Okay. Most of you probably remember this from the last time you did general obligation bonds, but it takes about 3 months from the time that you adopt an intent resolution to when you actually get to issue the bonds. That intent resolution has to be published 3 or 4 times, then you come back and decide whether or not you actually want to issue those bonds and how much, and then there's a marketing period and a validation period. So if you were to adopt a notice of intent at your next council meeting, which is November 6th, I believe, you're looking at the very end of January or the beginning of February to actually get those bonds issued. So if you want to issue any bonds at all, it would be my advice to go ahead and adopt that notice of intent. And for purposes of the notice of intent, I'd advise you to aim a little high, because you can do an intent resolution for 14 million and come back and decide you only want to issue 10. But if you do an intent resolution for 10 million, you can't come back and issue 14 without starting that process over. And I'm not smart enough to know if interest rates are going up or not, but that seems to be the general consensus. So I just urge you to keep that in mind.
Well, that's the reason we have these public workshops, so we can do that and discuss that. We don't need to run by 14 million or anything. And then whatever it takes to do it, that's what it takes. That's what we have in these meetings for. So, you know, I'm not in a big hurry to do anything. And it's 2% or whatever y'all change, 0.1, I mean, that happens. You know, you buy a car, the rates change, it change. Our deal is to make sure we get done with the bond, what we want done, and spend the amount of money we need. 14 million was the number they made up. It could be 22 million, it could be 6 million. That's what we up here discussing. So, appreciate your comments, but.
Now, N- n- I just have one final comment. You know, after listening to everyone and the things that they were saying, I'm not even opposed to upticking it a little more so that everyone can fit up under that umbrella to some degree, even if it means actually when we get to the actual projects, narrowing it down. I just heard what you said, you know, you can go high, but you can also borrow at a less. So if we ask for 14 million, we can bring it down to 10, but we can't go up. Looking at what we have, we may even have to reach a lot higher when you're talking about up to 20 million, and then maybe bring it down to maybe around 15. So I'm not opposed to doing that, because at the end of the day, we're still gonna have to vote on each individual project. I would just like to at least have the things that I want considered to be put in there, even if they're not voted on at the end of the day. I want it to be considered under that umbrella. So that's my take on it and the way I would like to see it.
Well, I mean, that's what they're supposed to bring back to us. That's what we're waiting for. The information to see what we want to borrow. That's that the mill and a half, right?
So if we go over $14 million, it would require a millage increase, is what you're saying? Okay.
Okay.
All right, so, do we need to have another workshop prior to our November 6th meeting as they compile these, numbers for us? Is that what?
Well, they're gonna bring some information back. but I mean,
That's what I'm saying. Are y'all prepared to bring something back by our
whether
next
it's the
meeting?
6th of the next week? No, we're not prepared.
I don't
That's what
know
we're doing
yet.
this
We
for.
gotta look at some numbers.
So if we vote on an, just to clarify. Just to clarify, if we file a notice of intent for $14 million, or whatever it's called, an intent for $14 million, we can always go under that, but we can't go over it. But it does not require us to borrow the full 14 if we decide that 11's going to be the right number. Okay, all right.
Now, do we have to specify what we're gonna do at this point, or we just can put it in a general scope of the things that we're gonna do? In other words, gymnasium
that's what we need to
at the
find
athletic
out.
state, okay. I'm
But
in
you
there.
gotta find, you just can't vote on the thing. We got the money and everything set up to do it.
Okay.
Find out the information.
My heart's satisfied.
Let's find out the information, and we'll come back to it.
Tuesday. All right, the chair would like to recommend workshop 4 o'clock before our 6 o'clock meeting on Tuesday, November 6th, if that's amicable to everyone.
That's
And
fine.
then we can vote on the intent at our regular meeting.
Well, that's up, you figure out what to come back for before you start voting.
I'll
on
second
anything.
that.
Don't go trapping yourself into deals you don't need to do. That's all.
He wants a workshop before.
So you don't believe you'd be ready for a workshop in
No.
a week?
Do it the 13th, Kenny.
But you can put a general price tag on it. You know, an X square amount metal building, prefab building would cost us X. At least we have a general idea, and then we may have to go get some
Mr.
help
President,
from somewhere else.
why don't you
Yes.
just set one up for the 13th?
All right.
At
Is that-
1:30,
is that
we don't
right?
have a meeting the 13th.
Is that all right?
Right,
Okay.
just set one up for the 1:30 to 13th, and let them bring what they can, give them 2 weeks.
All right. So we're gonna nix the workshop next week. We'll just have our regular meeting next week at 6 o'clock. On the meeting on the 13th, we'll go ahead and have a.
1:30.
Morning workshop.
So if we were to have the meeting prior to the workshop, prior to the meeting, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever, and we could vote on a resolution in the meeting if everyone was in agreement at the 6 o'clock meeting.
I like that, Nathan. I like that a lot better.
I mean,
think
that
the
gives
president
y'all a week
suggested it.
to,
All right, 5 o'clock workshop on Tuesday the 6th.
4 o'clock?
yeah, 4 or 5. I'm just saying, I mean, I don't think it's gonna take we've discussed what we need to discuss as far as what we want. We just need to put a dollar amount on it, I think.
Kenny, we're gonna need that 2 hours before.
All 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock. Mr. Guines said we're gonna need 2 hours. I tend to agree.
Because you know how we
I wish we could move faster, but it is sometimes necessary. All right, so for the clerk to record this, 4 o'clock, follow-up workshop on the 6th, followed by our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. Yes.
A was just to receive information. There is no resolution before you all to vote.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, ladies,
make a
everyone.
motion
Do
to
I have a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
I make
the
the motion
workshop.
adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Guines, seconded by Mr. Lawrence, and Mr. Deming concurrently. All in favor? Those opposed?